thank you for joining me for today's episode of Espresso 4.0. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Happy to have you. I have my espresso with me. I hope you have
my coffee.
Beverage. Excellent. Perfect with the logo and everything. And I gotta say, I love the letter F. I think that's the only way to spell Philip. So to that end, why don't you start us off with a little bit of intro into who Adrian is,
Sure.
Your background, and then we'll get into the questions. Before you do, just a little bit of a note. Sorry, I'm not on my, historical legendary couch of Espresso 4.0, but we're trying out different things in terms and setups. So this episode, I'm going to do it in this meeting room.
Fantastic for having me. Yeah, as I said, thanks for having me. I'm Adrian, born and raised originally in Germany, moved to the UK when I was, I think, 16 or so, went to school there, did my degree up in Scotland in the granite town of Aberdeen, then moved to Austria to do some research in the field of facility management, real estate, evaluation. And in, I think it was 2009, came back to Germany, joined family business being basically software. I'm doing CAD software since the early 80s when my dad started it, then moved on to facilities management, more the operational processes of technical facilities and installations, any sort of technical business process, basically. In 2009, I myself started our spin-off focusing to energy management, which sort of brought me more into the manufacturing area, coming from economics and management, basically. And in 2019, we started our newest edition, being the Framens, the company that now looks into the digital twin field from our group of companies. Yeah, that's me in an absolute nutshell.
In a nutshell. All right. Well, thanks for summarizing your entire life in less than a minute. I think you did a very good job. And now that you've mentioned digital twins, I got to say that's obviously a pretty hot topic right now in Industry 4.0. Everybody's talking about it, but there seems to be some disagreement as to what digital twin actually means. So I figured I have you in the show, who best to ask than the man himself. Why don't you tell us and our viewers specifically, what is a digital twin? Let's start with that as a foundation.
Yeah, as you already mentioned, that's a very, very good question, especially because everybody seems to have one. Everybody defines them slightly differently. Even I myself had to go back to Wikipedia to have a look what they say a digital twin apparently is. I think in short, a digital twin basically is a digital representation or copy of the real world object. Object being, of course, either a process, it can be some sort of real-time asset, it can be an entire factory, it can be just a small production line, it can be some sort of business process you're running. So in the end, it's basically nothing more than a digital representation of something that is real in real life. And then, of course, the idea behind the twin is to represent that asset, it is to run tests on that asset, it is to optimize the real life asset. So it is in the end a digital representation that can be used, just point out, for numerous different processes, and that's where all the different mindsets really come from. When you talk to somebody who does more the process twin of a machinery, for example, they were looking at mainly at data. Mainly operational data, IoT information, data flying in, how much pressure did I need to produce that piece of whatever I'm producing, and so on and so forth. That's sort of the process idea. Then you have the environmental digital twin that looks more at the machinery producing a certain object, which of course all has different sets of information. And down to what we are in the end doing is more the periphery, is more the whole thing, the factory, the entire shop floor, where for such a twin, you're more looking into even the visual information, sort of the streets you kind of approach or application, where you add, of course, IoT information and data to such a Google Street View in the end. So this topic of digital twin is huge and really depends on what you're wanting to do. Your digital twin. The other day, I saw an advert, for example, for an ERP system, who are talking about that they have a digital twin. So it's huge in the end, and everybody still makes out of a twin what they think a twin is.
Got it. Okay. So the term is a little bit bastardized, but what it defines how your perspective is what you're going to be using it for,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, yeah.
So why don't you tell us, you've mentioned a little bit, you just touched upon it, it helps optimize processes and test certain things, right? As opposed to testing them in real life, or how does it work? What are the actual benefits of having a digital twin? Why would anyone have it?
Depending on the use case, numerous. When looking from it from our point of view, being the sort of looking the factory or technical installation as a whole, as a physical asset we have, I think one of the core benefits is saving time. What we find, especially on the shop floor, especially in the manufacturing side or utility, you name it, you will have lots and lots of engineers, lots and lots of specialists, and I've been seeing that for the past 25 years, going back and forth onto the asset, and having a look what actually is going on in real life. Of course, they do have plans. Of course, they do have models. Of course, they do have databases where lots and lots of information is in, but they will still go back and forth to see what's happening in reality. There's research out there saying we're talking about 20 to 30% of overall working time of those specialists wasted on going back and forth. I was on the phone the other day to a customer of ours, and he said, yeah, he's just back from the US to have a look at their site over there, and his colleague is just about to board a plane to fly over as well.
Okay.
So that's the sort of thing, when you have a digital representation, just like such a street view, you can at least cut down on those travels, of course. But then that's one first topic. And then, of course, you can use such a twin to optimize certain processes. Where do I store my material? How does my process run? How does this work? How would that work? Even to the extent of planning purposes, will my machinery actually fit in where I'm planning on having it, kind of thing? So it's various different approaches, and it all comes down to saving time and money, and so basically saving the scarce resources you have, trying to optimize the use of your engineers, your specialists, and whatever, making them more efficient.
Understood. I see. I'm assuming in the way that you're using the digital twin, there's a lot of, I suppose, use cases which can be augmented or rather supplemented with AR. Am I right? So that's how it will work, basically. That's how it will be consumed on
yeah, again, depending on the use case. Initially, we thought when we started was, okay, have a digital twin. The idea is to have a twin in your browser, have it in your web browser, have it as a platform. And then depending on whether you are working remotely in your home office, wherever you are, or looking at a remote site, you typically be doing that, of course, on your workstation, on your laptop, or wherever. So you have it on your web browser and you use it. Of course, the idea is when I have such a twin that contains numerous information on current status, on whatever, the next step is, as you mentioned, to bring that into AR to help the guys who are actually on site with that information as well. So then what we're using is, again, we're using tablets or mobile phones to superimpose the information we have in our twin onto reality. The reason why we're using tablets and mobile phones is that what we found is the technology or in terms of glasses, the hardware is simply not there yet. And we talked to quite a few different customers, mainly from the manufacturing, also chemicals, pharmaceuticals. They said when they have somebody walking around one of those headsets on their shop floor, they're just out of the window instantly, because not going to happen, for health and safety reasons, they can't do that. On the other hand, they've got a mobile phone, they've got a tablet, X-proof, you name it, with them. So the idea was to use that to superimpose that into reality.
Okay, fair enough. Now we covered what it is, what the benefits are. Are there some organizations, some types of production lines or production facilities, factories that digital twins are better for or not? Basically, is this a technology that's reserved only for certain types of producers, manufacturers, or is it universal? And if it's better for some, who are those and why?
Well, they can all buy my software. No.
Good to know. Just leave your bank account afterwards.
No, I think those twins are by no means industry specific. And since we've been out there for the past 3, coming close to 4 years, our customers have been from very, very different industries, from various different business backgrounds. Of course, those twins really come to life when things become complex, or when you have distributed sites, or when things become larger and larger. When you have some small production site, not too complex production, yes, a twin may be nice, but not really necessary. Things you can operate that as you do on a day-to-day basis. You will have a couple of people out there doing that. Yes, there may well be a benefit in terms of capturing information, storing data, becoming more resilient. Of course there is. But it really becomes powerful when we're talking about very, very complex installations, fast-changing installations, or remote sites, spread out installations, having sites across the globe, across the country, across the region. Then those twins really become powerful, because you then, once you have these kind of operations or spread out operations, you have different specialists in different sites who need to help every now and so often. So that's when those twins really become powerful, when they bring those people together, bring those specialists together to work on the same environment. So I wouldn't really make it dependent on the industry. It's more, you need a certain size and you need a certain complexity for that to become really powerful.
Okay. And I suppose that this is only a temporary thing as technology is getting cheaper, because everyone can benefit from it. It's just a matter of whether it makes sense to invest.
Yeah. Basically, well, we're trying to make this cheap as possible, because that's still one of the huge topics of those twins, especially the initial creation of those twins. And we're looking, of course, at infrastructure, fast-changing environments, and the upkeep of such a twin, making sure the twin stays in sync with the real environment. So change a pump, change an environment, you need to update the twin, of course. But that, of course, is still a topic of cost, and of course, it's a feasibility. When I have my 2 specialists who know the factory or know the site inside out, there is no need to provide them with some digital information as well. They know that. They know their way around that. Of course, when they retire, when they leave the company, then those things can come into play. Was okay, how do I educate the next person, the next specialist coming? So that's when that comes into play. But generally speaking, at least at the moment, it's more focused on the larger ones or the complex sites.
Understood. And in fact, I think it plays well hand in hand with the aging workforce and with the difficulty of finding qualified personnel to work in manufacturing these days, right? At least at the number that the industry requires. So with a tool like this, knowledge transfer is very easy. Onboarding is very easy. Managing multiple assets is easier, right?
Yeah. And we had a really nice use case when you mentioned that with a customer from a food and beverage in Hungary, where they had exactly that problem of rather high staff fluctuation. And they really used it basically to train the new staff in terms of which buttons to press, which not to press. So training them offsite on the job to allow for quicker training, to allow for, as you said, a knowledge transfer and so on.
Okay. And one thing I didn't hear you say, but I'm not sure if that is a barrier. It seems like apart from the size and the complexity of the process, another prerequisite would be that the process, or rather the production process, relies more on the machines as opposed to human manual work. Am I wrong?
The production process in terms of twins, or in terms of?
So the value that the digital twins can bring is more on the production processes that involve a lot of machines working, as opposed to, let's say, an assembly, people assembling.
Yes and no. That's a tricky one. I wouldn't see it that black or white. The benefit of such a twin, well, again, what kind of twin we're talking? If we're of course talking a product twin or even a process twin, of course that brings significant impact, has a significant impact on the actual production. When you look at assembly, on the other hand, why not? You know sort of where things happen when you have, especially assembly has topics of storage. Where do I have enough space? How can I digitize my existing assembly line? How do I recreate? How do I restructure certain things? That's again when such a twin can come into play and help you along the lines. So it's not necessarily as black or white. You really just have to think, how am I planning on my twin helping my day-to-day operations? Okay. Having a twin just for the sake of having a twin is not going to win anything. It's just a matter of, what do I want to use my twin for?
I understand. Okay, fair enough. I know I throw you a little bit of a curveball, but it just came to me as we were like thinking about it. But I think you find your way out of it quite well. How does one start a digital twin project, and what are some best practices, and what are some trappings to keep an eye on?
I think, as with any, in the end, it's an IT project we're talking about. And I think with any IT project, start small. Start small, start easy, do one step after the other. And that's one of the huge topics we constantly have, digital twin being a huge topic, and constantly, oh, I need my twin of this entire site, ideally my entire company, and I need it tomorrow. And like, okay, guys, just take a step back and take it slow. That's one of the major shortfalls we often see, one of the traps we have, that they just want too much too quick. Best practice, or what we typically do with our customers, is where we start, as I said, small, start with one site, start with one area, start just for one shop floor, do the capturing, kind of sort of create the twin, create the geometry, create the sort of 3D capacity, create the environment, then bring in the existing information you have, depending on the process you're looking at. Am I looking more towards energy management? Am I looking more towards maintenance? Am I looking more towards whatever? Bring that data in and have that thing grow slowly. Grow and grow and grow and grow, but do that slowly and say, okay, what information do I need? Try not to overpower too quickly. And then once a certain process or the defined processes work in a small scale, then you can then start scaling it internationally, scaling it to the other sites that are in question. I think that's one of the key tricks of bringing something like that in.
Fair enough. In fact, these are kind of repetitive themes that we went over. I mean, they're not foreign to anyone who's watched any episode of Espresso 4.0. There seems to be like, know your why, right? Why you're doing it. Identify what you're going to start with and do it incrementally. And of course, onboard the right people so that they have ownership, so that they can later adopt that solution, because there's no point in having an amazing solution on top of an amazing organization if no one is using that solution. Okay, well, thank you. Let's, I want to know a little bit more about you, and I think people do too. Let's humanize you a little bit. First and foremost, Merkel, any relations?
No.
None. Okay,
no.
well,
nothing like that. No politicians anywhere near.
No, okay, fair enough. And if I called you on 2 p.m. on a Sunday, what would I be interrupting you in?
Most likely you catch me playing my 5-year-old son. Given that I do travel quite a lot, I do have long days during the week. I try to sort of keep my weekends free. I try to spend as much time with the little one and my wife over the weekend. He's now really coming into playing with Legos. So that's fantastic. We were sitting there on a Sunday building weird and wonderful stuff. So that's most likely what you will be disturbing me doing.
Nice. You got to take him to Legoland. And
still plans for that.
Yeah, good. Because as a child who loved Lego, I always wanted to go to one, but never actually went. So for us and for me and every other child that didn't go to Legoland, do it for yourself.
Oh, I will.
Avenge us. And last but not least, what's the coolest thing you recently saw in terms of technological or software development that really stuck out that you want to share with us? Doesn't necessarily have to be digital twin, it could be outside of us.
Oh, no, it's not. Well, it's kind of to do, but I think, well, apart from, there's lots and lots of cool things coming out. There's so many cool stuff all around, whether it's cool new drones, cool new little toys running on. I think the coolest one that really did stick out for me was Elon Musk's new robot, the
I
Optimus.
knew you were going to say it. It's so good.
The reason for that is, well, I think that thing, if it worked, if it's not a human they're running around, as we've seen last year, if that thing really comes to life, if that thing really kicks in, that's going to be a real game changer. Because the reason for that is, we're playing around with robots as well. We've got a project running with one of those little robot dogs wandering around. The problem is, what we found is that the world we live in today is not made for dogs. It's made for humans. Any tech environment is made for humans. So if you have a robot dog, you have to train that thing to find its way around an environment made for human beings. But if you have a robot that can basically act like a human being, that's going to be awesome.
Yeah.
So
a bipedal erect.
Yeah, just two hands.
Two hands, of course.
And that's, I think, two hands. That's a huge topic. And of course, just one of those. That'd be awesome.
and I think it's not that expensive. It was like 20,000.
I think it's going a bit more than that. But the thing is, I can imagine, well, you might think of Elon Musk as a person, whatever you want to, but I think he may be the one who can bring that thing actually to life.
Yeah, I gotta agree with you on that. And with the preface, you may think of him when you want, but I think he might be able to bring that to life. Right, that's cool. I wasn't sure you were going to mention it, but I was waiting for at least one of the guests to mention what was it, Optimus? Is that what it's called?
Optimus,
yeah, it's pretty cool. Well, thank you, Adrian. This has been very enlightening. Thank you for being a guest. We love having you. Hopefully, we'll have you in one of the episodes in the future. And if anyone wanted to reach you, they can find you on LinkedIn, I suppose.
Yep.
And that's it.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me. It was great.
Have a good day. Bye.
Thank you. Take care. Bye.